This is my most prized possession.
Wham.
No. Wham! Make it big as the album that George and Andy earned the exclamation point.
So, am I supposed to just smile and wave you out the door?
Think of it like spring cleaning, only if spring was death. God, if I had a nickel for every time I spanked it to Bernadette Peters.
Sounds like you do. Bernadette is not going anywhere because you're not going anywhere. Drink.
You're right. Cancer's only in my liver, lungs, prostate, and brain. All things I can live without. Oh.
You belong here at home, surrounded by your Voltron and your Bernadette and your me.
Listen, we both know that cancer is a shit show. Like a Yakov Smirnoff opening for the spin doctors at the Iowa State Fair. Shit show. And under no circumstances will I take you to that show. I want you to remember me. Not the ghost of Christmas me.
Well, I want to remember us.
I swear to God, I will find you in the next life, and I'm gonna boombox Careless Whisper outside your window. Wham!
Hey, I'm Kyle. Thanks for joining me and Andy for the Legendary Creature podcast. So, if you're listening with your kids or your conservative grandma, maybe don't, because we swear.
Or you can check us out on YouTube, because hey, that's no place for conservative old women or children.
Fuck yeah. Are we ready to start, dude?
Yeah, let's just start it up.
Let's do it.
So it's me, AP again. Andy's in Alaska riding bears and like catching salmon with his mouth. So I'm stepping in today.
Yeah, we got a guest host this time. Usually we don't do laundry to start episodes, but man, we've been away for a little bit. Like Andy and I had some bad crossover. He was trying to finish up school. I went on vacation. Now he's, like you say, he's up in Alaska, like trying to catch bearskins and all that shit.
Yeah, I was freaking out on Friday. I didn't see any episodes. I thought you guys died.
I like posted to people like, "Hey, we've got a deluge of stuff that's been happening," and I think people have been worried about us because Andy was sick too, you know. And
Oh yeah.
I said, "No, it's fucking life, man. It's fucking life."
Well, thank God we're back.
Yeah, right.
Well, I guess just you. Andy's not back yet.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Fuck him.
Fuck him. We did try to do an episode while I was in California. I brought one of those like portable mics, and I put a blanket over the top of me inside of the closet of the Airbnb where I stay
so
in. Like,
jank, dude.
trying to like get on Discord with Andy and record, and then he was
like, it's not fucking working.
well,
dude.
I mean, like I think I was able to make it sound okay, but Andy was just like, I don't think I can do this episode, Kyle. Because he was wanting to do this new Niv Mizzet, right? And
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't think I can do anything unique, man. It's just,
Yeah, that deck looks like a mess. I mean, outside of CEDH, I get like it's kind of replacing Tazri a little bit.
sure.
But anything else, I don't know what you're gonna do with all that.
Yeah, I don't know. Niv Mizzet's weird. Maybe we'll do an episode where Andy tries to work it out. That's not my territory. He's like the only person in our group that's done 5 colors as well. So
Yeah, I'm not fucking with that at all.
yeah, I have no desire.
I have no desire
to
do that.
I don't want to buy the land base required to have a 5-color deck.
Yeah,
either.
I have enough identity issues in real life. I don't want to do that with a deck. You know.
All right, man. Last time we had you on, you came and we chatted a little bit about kind of like just the overarching Magic the Gathering story, like some of the things that they've done in the past, kind of what's going on right now. And this was right before we got the story on War of the Spark.
Yeah, and now it's out. It's in full effect, and I think for the most part we were pretty accurate.
Right?
You know, I think we're pretty accurate. I mean, one of our biggest takeaways is the stakes there's not going to be a lot of actual consequence here, and I mean, you know, rip Gideon, but
Sure. I
you
mean,
know?
if you're one of those guys that's into Gideon, which I'll tell you one thing, I didn't know that many people were into Gideon until after he was dead.
maybe, I don't know, maybe they weren't, and then they just happen to care about him now that he's gone, you know?
I still miss Elspeth, dude. I thought she was cooler than Gideon.
Yeah, she was dope. You know, I don't know. The spell book was a little gut wrenching though when you saw the rest in peace art.
Shit,
that was well done. You know, no matter what you think about the character, that was pretty cool.
That's true. That was pretty dope. I'm into it. I don't know. Have you gotten into that story at all? Like besides just kind of the basics of what's happened?
A little bit. I think something they did really well is, I mean, the card set unraveled in a cool way. It kind of sucks that spoilers came out when they did for the cards, but
sure.
But the way the spoiler season was intended to run, at least, I think unfolded the story pretty well. And I think in terms of like the cards and how they represented the story in the set, that was dope.
Yeah.
I was gonna buy the novel, and then I just saw kind of.
You saw the professor's review,
yeah,
didn't you, dude?
That was exactly what I saw. I saw the professor's review, and I was like, I'm not gonna touch that. You know, it sounds like a lot of the stuff that we were complaining about. You know, I think in its core, the heroes we were talking about, you know, heroes usually are just likable characters. They're just a bunch of likable attributes that you tend to admire. But just because they're likable characters doesn't mean you're going to have the audience engagement.
Sure.
And I think a bit of that happens, especially if a character like Gideon, it's like, yeah, he's this, you know, he's like this perfect guy and he's all the stuff that maybe we would want to be, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be interested in his story. If anything, it kind of disengages me because I can't empathize with this guy much at all.
Yeah, I've always kind of thought that about Gideon, which is why I was surprised that there were so many people kind of like bummed out that he died. It's like, yeah, we're a bunch of nerds playing this game. None of us are beefcakes like this dude.
Yeah, none of us look like that. None of us act like that, you know?
Like, we don't have invincibility spells that make us indestructible. I mean, obviously it's Magic the Gathering. There's a lot of that, but he seems hard to relate to. But, you know, people were sad he died.
Yeah, and I'll give the set credit. Like, I think they pulled it off pretty well with what they could.
Sure.
I was happy with the cards. You know, maybe not too much as a commander player. I'm getting more into standard, and that's probably why I like it more, you know?
Okay.
But I'm really happy with how, they try to, I'm always into the flavor function of cards, and I think they did an awesome job with that before the Spark.
I like your point that like the way that they seemingly intended to roll out the set where you kind of like got bits and pieces of the story revealed as the spoiler season went on. I think that was pretty cool. That was pretty dope.
Cool. Yeah.
Like there was a moment in time where Andy and I were both seeing there's an art, it's something like Storm the Citadel or something like that, where you see in the art that there's the God Eternals there.
Yeah.
But we hadn't seen any cards that referenced them. There was just the art. And
I remember, you know, me and Andy were texting back and forth like, dude, I think the gods are back. Dude.
Yeah.
Like, look at these huge figures next to Nicol Bolas or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was really awesome to experience that. So I'll give him credit for that spoiler season for sure.
Yeah.
And I wish Nif Mizzet didn't get spoiled like in that first run on Reddit. Because if that was a reveal by the end of it, that probably would have been insane.
Oh,
I
yeah,
probably would have
right?
felt
Like
so jazzed.
like,
about
oh
that.
shit, Nif Mizzet's dead, and then you realize like, oh damn, he's back, dude.
Well, what's funny is I guess in the
genius dragon, man.
I guess in the book they never even touch on like his death. They just already talk about it after the fact. They're like, hey, we're reviving Niv Mizzet. You're like, reviving?
Like wait, what the fuck?
He was dead. It doesn't talk about his death at all. So, and it may be a cool card to represent that, but I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we're in this day and age where people are struggling with storytelling a little bit, because it seems to me a lot of people have gripes with how Game of Thrones is going in this last season.
Yeah, I have some gripes too. It just sucks. Like when things get rushed like that, it's impossible to meet expectations, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
And in the context of War of the Spark, it's one of those things where it's a book that needs to go along with the set, but it's probably a story because there's so many interesting characters that could have been multiple books over the course of the year, but they gotta put it out with the set, right? Like that's when the hype is.
Yeah, you know, and I feel for R&D, it is a lot to juggle to make sure everything aligns, but when it does, it does. And I think the novel missed a couple marks for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and I think what's cool is, and we talked about this the last time we were talking about lore, but we were kind of saying if they can just be honest about, is this set an event set or is this set about like the plane itself? And I think I actually read something by Rosewater, and he was actually saying something to that effect of like, we're going to be honest and be like, hey, this is an event set, or this is a set about just a plan and building the world and the characters in it. So hopefully moving forward, we see a lot more of that. Maybe this is a great learning lesson from all ends, you know?
Yeah, and I know listening to his Drive to Work podcast, he's kind of addressed that, like they went to Ravnica just because it's an interesting place for things to happen, that the stakes feel a little bit higher because it's a place that everybody's interested in and familiar with. It's not like, because it's kind of funny, like Amonkhet's basically fucked, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know, we were only there for one set. We only barely had a notion of its existence before we got to the
That's
set.
true. Yeah.
And so it's like it is kind of one of those things where you're like, Amonkhet basically doesn't exist. It's just this desert with what is it? Hazaret that's still out there?
Yeah, it's just Hazaret kicking it.
Hazaret kicking it with a few alive people out in the
Doesn't
desert.
even have her fucking spear anymore, I think, you know?
Yeah, like it's just, that plane is fucked. But, you know, we didn't have an investment in it. We haven't been there multiple times.
Yeah, and I guess what's kind of cool too, if we're, you know, we talked a lot about just what's marketable. I think an advantage of if you do event sets, kind of like with Amonkhet, you can kind of gauge like, okay, people seemed really into the aesthetic of this, and maybe we can revisit. So I think there's a lot of cool practical things that happen if they end up going back to Amonkhet, or if going forward they kind of create a plane just to hold the event.
Yeah,
of engage, you know, how the audience feels about it, how the players feel about it. So I think going forward, hopefully we see a lot of cool stuff come through.
Yeah, and I guess from a designer approach, hopefully, like you say, there's some lessons learned in terms of doing the event set, lessons learned about the novel and the delivery of their story. People are invested in the story, dude. People like it, but man, sometimes it's not very good.
Yeah,
but the thing is,
not.
people are going to come back to it, you know? Like they put out a book with the next set, like people will come back.
Yeah,
sure.
And I don't know, maybe the best set to come out hasn't come out yet, you know? And maybe that's the optimistic side of me, but hopefully, man. But we've seen some really cool lore in the past, and that's actually what I was excited to talk about with you today, you know?
Yeah.
We were kind of spitballing an idea last time of, you know, we talk a lot about the 99 cards that go in our deck and just like, you know, deck tacking, the synergies, the whatever. And we were kind of talking about if we just talked about that, you know, that one card in the command zone, you know, the legendary creature, and see about, you know, what's their background like, what does their flavor function look like. And I think one of the cards that comes to mind for almost everybody, I feel, for flavor function has been Feldon.
Feldon is dope, dude.
Yeah, Feldon is dope. You know, even knowing nothing about the character, just reading the card, you're like, no way, Reanimator and mono red.
Yeah,
You know, even that alone kind of piques your interest, right?
Yeah, it's something unique to do in Commander for sure.
We both took a water
Yeah,
break.
we're both like, oh,
We're
I'm
still here.
thirsty, man.
Yeah, but you know, I'd like to talk about Feldon and kind of his story, and kind of build just like a portrait around him, and then even just go back and look at the card and see how the story was captured in that card.
All right,
You know?
I'm excited for that. This is something I've been excited to explore. Like, let's look at a specific commander story and how their card embodies that person,
Yeah, man.
character.
So you know, we'll just start it off, and you know, help me if I miss any spots, but we'll just kind of go through.
Yeah, let's
You
do
know,
it.
his whole timeline, learn a little bit about him. So, Feldon of the Third Path. So the Third Path part is in itself is pretty cool. So, Feldon exists in the time of the Brothers' War. So, like, you know, Urza and Mishra were going at it.
Yeah,
And what the Third Path refers to actually is it's saying that Urza and Mishra both have kind of their own paths that everyone follows, right? They're
sure.
both, but with it being the Brothers' War, they're both very destructive paths. So what the Third Path is this group of people that are kind of seeking either some kind of neutrality or a way to end the war.
Yeah,
So they're picking a path not under Urza, you know, and, you know, we kind of hail Urza as like a hero a little bit and, you know, almost the protagonist at the time.
for sure.
But they're kind of like, either way, like, we don't want the path of violence. We're not following you. You like, you know, they're seeking that. They don't want the war, period.
yeah, like we got to be the aesthetics, right? So there's somebody that's got to be that kind of a foil.
Yeah, exactly. So they're a commune for just that. Everybody in the Third Path community are these people that are against the war. They want to be neutral, or even better, find a way to stop the war.
Yeah.
So this is where Feldon resides. So a lot of these people, they study magic. And this is where obviously Feldon actually met his wife, Lauren.
And she's like a big deal in this dude's like.
Yeah, huge deal. And to even find a relationship in the midst of a war, because I mean at this point it must be like a damn war zone, between Urza and Mishra, and I get trying to knock one out, but this guy's like, no, I'm trying to go steady, like they're in crisis mode, and he's over here, trying to court Lauren. But hey, man,
Yeah,
she's
like
into it.
you read any war novel, and it's like the guys are just like, they need a place to rub one out, and he's like, nah, man, I'm in love.
Like, no, I love this chick, dude. But yeah, their relationship grows while this goes on. But of course, it wouldn't be a Magic the Gathering story without everybody getting fucked by the end. So
God damn it.
So I guess they get ratted out, right? They get ratted out because Feldon actually, as neutral as he is, he holds one of the most like deadliest artifacts ever, the Golgathian Silex. So it's in his possession, and it's this thing that just causes this huge explosion, and later on in the story actually causes the Ice Age block. Like that's how devastating the explosion was.
When I was getting into like just doing a little bit of homework on Feldon, I was like, wait. He fucking had this thing?
Yeah, man, he had it. He pulled it from like some glacier or something that he grew up in.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah, of course the neutral guys have the most dangerous weapon ever. So they get ratted out. Mishra's guys go through, and I think they're actually Ashnod's a part of it, and I think they actually lead her to it. So they obviously invade the Third Path village. Feldon survives and escapes, but Lauren tries to take the Golgathian Silex and hide it essentially.
Yeah.
Right. She's that passionate about not supporting this war that she doesn't want this weapon in their possession. Right.
Right.
She gets captured and caught and actually tortured by Ashnod. So if you take a look at Ashnod's altar, you can see that Lauren at some point was on that table.
See, and that's
Right.
that's what's crazy to me is I was just thinking about it. I'm like, holy cow, this makes Ashnod's altar like
Terrifying.
it really hits home. You're like,
Yeah.
oh shit, this isn't just like some torture device or whatever. Like
Yep.
I legitimately know how a character was affected by this thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and that just it adds that whole other layer to the card when you see it. You know what I mean? And then even if you look at the flavor function of that card, sacrifice a creature, add to, 2 colorless mana, she tortures Lauren to, gain this resource, gain this information to, fuel her agenda, which is get the Golgathian Silex.
Dude, have you I don't know if I've ever paid attention to the flavor text on Ashnod's altar.
What does it say?
So this is Ashnod to Tanos, by the way, who's another
Urza's apprentice,
recent
right?
character we've seen
Yeah.
embodied in a card. If you work at sawing up carcasses, you notice how the joints fit, how the nerves are arrayed, and how the skin peels back.
Oh my god,
It's just-
dude! That
And
is
you're just thinking about like this
awful,
is
you
who's
know?
dealing with Lauren after she's
Exactly.
captured.
Poor little Lauren, man. And I think that's what's part of what's so devastating for Feldon, right? So
Yeah.
after the fact, right, Lauren's tortured. They win, right? They get the Golgathian Silex. Lauren doesn't die immediately. She does survive the torture immediately. But what ends up happening is once the Golgathian Silex is used, it causes the Ice Age.
Right.
So now we're in, hard to survive conditions on top of her already mortal wounds from Ashnod that, she eventually passes.
Yeah.
Right. And what's so frustrating for Feldon, I'm sure, is that with him being so against the war, everything that happened that led up to Lauren passing was because of the war, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He has a lot of stake in this, is that, that artifact was taken from him. Now he's living in the Ice Age. He's probably pissed about how fucking cold it is. He's feeling like Andy in Alaska.
Unless he's going
right
to
now.
Alaska in
Yeah,
May,
unless he's
dude.
going to Alaska, fucking, And then, the unspeakable things that probably happened to Lauren when she was tortured by Ashnod.
Yeah.
And Ashnod's like getting off on it, right? And Feldon's freaked out. He's pissed about it. But what Feldon ends up doing is he goes on this crazy journey of, accepting losing Lauren pretty much.
Yeah.
Right? So immediately what he does is him studying magic and, studying artificing, which is huge at this time with,
Can I
Urza and
pause
Mishra.
you for a second?
Of course.
So something something just kind of on Feldon's MTG wiki that I kind of thought was an interesting reference is when he was betrayed by the Brotherhood, or the Brotherhood of Gix betrayed the Third Path.
It was Gix. Yep, you're right. It was the Brotherhood of Gix.
So the Brotherhood of Gix like exposes the Third Path, and that's when like things go sideways. But they actually were using like juggernauts and dragon engines. So I was just thinking, I'm like, imagine Ramos like fucking coming in, dude.
Oh my God,
like
dude.
fucking the Third Path up.
And they're just a bunch of communist hippies too, man. They can't kick it with fucking Ramos the dragon engine, man. And that's another thing too. They were just not ready for an invasion like that.
They sound kind of like these ascetics a little bit, right? And then you end up with fucking dragon
engines, dude, in your town, dude, going through your coffee shops,
dude. Whenever Ramos shows up at my house, I've got a kill spell ready, dude.
Yeah, dude, I have a wrath in my pocket right now, dude.
All right, so Feldon, he's kind of like. You were saying his journey of acceptance or whatever.
Yeah, so he studies magic and he studies artificing. So one of the things he does is he tries to build an automaton, right? He's trying to seek closure through at least, some kind of something that resembles Lauren. He wants more closure. He wants to recreate her, have her back in his life, right? He's kind of struggling with just losing her the way that he did. So what he does is, he tries to build an automaton. Let's be honest.
He just wants a fuck bot, like the
he wants a
Gazorpian
fuck bot. So
men,
he built
dude.
an automaton fuck bot.
I kid,
but yeah, and obviously he couldn't get it right, and it's something that he was so frustrated with while building the automaton is, it's kind of that uncanny valley thing. There's a point to where he can kind of get it to resemble her pretty closely, but then it's like a mute.
Yeah,
right? It's a mute and it can't even speak, because what he wants is some kind of dialogue with her. That's like where he found fulfillment in being with her. And what frustrated him the most is when he found artificing couldn't give him what he needed, he started seeking to the magic he knew. But the magic he knew was from the mountains, right? And the mountains, the magic it gave him were things of, for the most part, like destruction.
Yeah.
Right? So he could form fires and create these huge lightning storms and shift the earth itself, but none of that served his cause. He was never about that. He was never about, destruction or any violence like that. He's trying to find a way to bring back Lauren.
Yeah.
Right. And he's frustrated because the mountains can't provide him that. So that kind of sends him on this huge journey, right? This like Avatar of the Last Airbender like journey going through. He seeks all these.
Go around and ride the giant koi fish.
Yeah, the huge koi fish, and go to all the elder turtles or whatever, right? But he starts seeking other forms of magic. He's like, if the mountains can't give me back Lauren, maybe the forest can, right? So he first seeks this crazy ass hermit in the forest, right?
Yeah, and it's what's weird to me is like, when you start studying lore on Dominaria, like you get how, I guess, literal some of the things are. Like, he's literally saying that he's drawing magic from the mountains.
Yep.
And then goes to literally trying to draw magic from the forests.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if you get that impression as much since we've been on so many different planes. That like,
yeah, it's true. It's with I guess Ravnica is a good example, right? Everything is structure based. It's like how much of it, I get it resembles the mountain, but you're right. Dominaria is literally like, no, it's the mountains. Like, we're at the mountain. This is where the mana is from.
Yeah, these are where the ley lines of mana are coming from that you're drawing this magic from.
Yeah, but with other planes, it's kind of, it's a little bit of a reach sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I think Ravnica is a good example because it's like we've got these guild gates, and so like, okay, there's magic coming out of the guild gate. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know, just kind of like an interesting thing where maybe it doesn't quite align, but like they just, I don't know, they got to shoehorn it in somehow to make it work.
Yeah, and I guess this story is a good example when, it is super literal, right? So I guess pretty close to the source code. But yeah, here he is, right? He's in the forest and he kind of thinks that, well, green magic's all about that. It's about calling onto nature.
Yeah.
Right. And then hopefully someone who practices this kind of magic has a way to, bring back life if it's all about life. But what he soon learns is that, again, green magic is that it's all about nature, and a huge part of nature is that things are temporary, right? Death is death. It's
That's
final.
that, dude.
And I was kind of joking earlier that, you see a lot of recursion spells in green, and it's kind of more like recycling, right? It's kind of like, there's death and then life, they throw their compost out and it turns into a fucking huge worm thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, he kind of hits a dead end there. Like, it won't bring back Lauren. They respect the fact that she's passed.
Like, she's gone, dude.
So
She's fucking gone,
yeah,
man.
yeah, just accept it, dude. Well, hopefully he does by the end of this, right? So the next step is he seeks someone who practices the magic of the islands, right?
Okay.
They hoped that, they value knowledge a lot. Maybe they found something in the ancient text or whatever that can bring back Lauren, some kind of spell or some kind of knowledge that he hasn't tapped into. So when he does find someone that practices magic and they offer their resources, all they can do is offer an illusion of her.
Right.
So in the story, it kind of tells that blue is more about creating the shadows of life, right? Instead of actually bringing onto, life itself, to where green calls into nature itself.
Sure.
Right. So they all just have these super specific things that they do, but so far none of them offer, bringing someone back to life.
So it's kind of like, I think in the storyline, we see a ton of Jace stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's always casting illusion spells.
Yep.
And I don't know, you kind of think of it, comparing it to that. Like, like Jace is using illusions to fool other people. And so I'm sure Feldon is kind of like, yeah, if I cast an illusion, like, I fucking know it's an illusion, and it's not. Like,
yeah, it's not enough. You're right, because part of Jace's shtick is that to him, he knows it's an illusion, but to us, it's as real as can be. Right. But to be the one that's casting the illusion, it breaks that whole thing. You know it's an illusion. You know it's fake.
Yeah, it's like literally like a magician being surprised by their own trick. Like, that's not going to happen,
Exactly. So there's his dead end with the blue, right? So he goes to the swamps and he finds what I think is essentially a necromancer in the swamps.
Yeah, I think the blue wizard like actually sends him to some black mage.
Yeah, they all kind of, delegate it to somebody else. They're like, I don't fucking know, ask this guy, right? So they go, and I guess one of the offerings he makes is Feldon has this cane that he's like famous for.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think there's actually a card called Feldon's cane. And one of the prices he needs to pay to work with this, black magician is giving him the cane. So he does it. He's that desperate. He's gone through so much to get her back that he's like, just fucking take it, right? And what happens is, and it works. They reanimate Lauren, but it's black magic.
He's like, whoa,
yeah,
fucking zombie Lauren.
Exactly. It's black magic though, right? It brings back a zombie Lauren, and kind of similar to when he had the automaton version of her. It's not what he needed, and also fucking horrific. You know, like she's decomposing all this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right. And quickly he sees the price that they had to pay to do this. Right. She's reanimated. Now she's not resting in peace. Right. Her actual body. And yeah, he can't. Again, it was about the relationship he had with Lauren. Right. There's just these zombie murmurs and gurgles with her.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
so I don't know what actually comes of zombie Lauren. I just know he's not trying to kick it anymore. Right.
I think he just like straight, like,
I think he kills her.
He just drops her. He's just like,
that's tight. That was probably hard though.
Yeah. So it says, reading directly from the wiki, it says, it created a zombie version of her. Disgusted, Feldon unsummoned the creature before he could lay eyes on it.
Fucking unsummoned,
he was just like,
dude.
This feels disgusting to me.
Oh my God. He's not that desperate for some tang, dude. But
oh man,
here we go again, man. We're at another dead end, right? And it's, I don't know, you kind of resonate with it a little bit, right? It is this really long healing process for Feldon. He's trying to find a way to just come to terms with this. So, I mean, last stop, right? He finds a white scholar who practices white magic, right? And this guy sounds a little biased, but his whole shtick was like, okay, here's here's kind of the deal, and here's what I can offer you, right? So far you've come to the magics of green, blue, black, and red. So green calls onto nature itself and the living. Blue again creates the shadows of life. Black calls to the dead, and then red consumes, right? But what my magic offers, it's supposed to be the magic of comprehension and acceptance, right? So of course he makes himself look a little good, but he's kind of
He's like, I'm the fucking white mage. Like I'm the one that's enlightened here.
I'm the
dude.
one that's enlightened, dude. But he kind of tells Feldon, it's like, pretty much what I'm telling you is that we can't bring her back for good, but I can teach you to, kind of accept it. And what I can offer is a way to teach you to create an exact copy of her at least, right? And we've seen a bit of that. He made the automaton or whatever. But how this differed a little bit is that the white scholar actually had Feldon embrace the magic of the mountains and use it in a way that can, fulfill what he's trying to do. Create a copy of Lauren so he can get closure. He wants to have this dialogue with her and basically say his goodbyes. So what the white scholar tells Feldon is that he used this example that when you create fire, you're not actually creating fire. You're just using energy and magic that already exists, and you're giving it the shape of fire.
Yeah.
So what he tells him is you can do the same thing to make a copy of Lauren. You can use the magic and the energy around you to not create another Lauren, but to shape it into Lauren and kind of give it her essence a little bit. So, they go through this whole training montage, they go up the steps, the music plays.
The scholar is like hanging off of Feldon's back. He's like running through the plains, dude.
Yeah, he has his, shitty PowerPoint presentation with him and Lauren's, vacations to wherever the fuck, right? And then they're in the zone, man. That all happens and it pays off. He does it, right? He creates an exact copy of Lauren, and something that the zombie didn't do and the automaton didn't do is it was her essence, right? He talked to her and it felt like it was actually her, right? And he got to do it. He got to say that Lauren kind of comes in and he asks Feldon, like, what am I doing here? Like, what's happening? What's whatever? He's like, look, I brought you back here
I missed you, bitch.
I missed you, idiot. But no, he's like, I brought you back to get closure. I need to say goodbye. And I need to say it once and for all. Right?
Yeah.
So he does that. Again, it was just temporary, right? So she evaporates. And then from there, Feldon kind of does feel a bit of that contentment. Like he's finally able to find that closure, move on a little bit. And what's cool is that, there's a lot of artificers and scholars and magicians that visit Feldon, and he kind of passes on a lot of the magic that he had learned and a lot of stuff that he learned on his journey.
Yeah. He accumulates this like library after all this stuff, right? He's just like,
Exactly.
that people are just, that he's got a lot of resources for them now.
Yeah. But, in a nutshell, that's kind of his story, right? It's this long journey from, he felt shafted by the Brothers' War for sure, right? Lost something that's really important to him. And he went on this unobtainable journey to bring back someone that he lost, but ended up with finding a way to, find closure that he needed.
Dude, there's some interesting stuff about this story to me. Like one, I don't know. It's kind of funny to me, like to think of like, you ever have like someone you date that just ghosted you,
Yeah. The White Buffalo or whatever?
Yeah, right. They're just like,
Yeah.
I'm out of here. Like they're just like, they couldn't tell you that they were done.
Yeah.
But they were fucking done.
Yeah.
And you never ever get to like find out why. Like our human brains are just like,
Yeah.
why?
It twists you, man. And what's so hard is that where we get stuck on, and even just in like smaller facets of our life, right? Not even just relationships. It's these like missed opportunities that people agonize over.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I guess that's kind of, and I think that's what's so relatable about this story, right? It's like he's seeking this closure because he's stuck on that. He's like, what if this war wasn't here to take this thing away from me?
Yeah.
Like, what if she wasn't tortured? What if this, what if she just lived and we had the Golgothian Silex, right? It's worse not to have the closure because you come up with a million scenarios where you fucked up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And I think that's hard for people to accept.
It's true. But like you say, I think ultimately that's what makes his character so relatable, because while maybe we're not walking around with this like earth-changing artifact,
Yeah.
and a GF that gets tortured to find out about it. Like,
Yeah.
we certainly can relate to the fact of, like you say, loss and wondering what else could have been done or what other scenarios in some other dimension might look like.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so cool about this story and I think it's a story like this that made me, a little bitter about like the Justice League, because I've seen them create awesome stories.
Sure.
And I think what's so cool about the ending of this story is how bittersweet it is. Because in face value, Feldon actually didn't get shit from all that in a way, right?
Right,
Like
it's true.
He wanted to get Lauren back. He didn't get Lauren back at all, right?
Right.
But what he got is just kind of like a new perspective a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
He gained a lot of knowledge and, yeah, like you say, like new perspective.
Yeah, it's like, okay, although you didn't get what you sought out to, you in a way kind of got what you wanted,
Right.
Which was a way to just be okay with her being gone, right? To where, you juxtapose that with, our most recent story, to where there's this 6-year arc with Nicol Bolas and his plans and whatever, and then pretty much just Domri and Gideon die.
Yeah.
But of course he's in the prison realm. Like, of course he is. We knew that was going to happen. There was no other way that was going to happen. The way this story is set up is that there's either this destination to where they lose or this destination to where, they win. So obviously it's going to end to the latter. But what's cool about this story is if you're kind of following it throughout, is that you actually don't really know where you're going to land. Like you kind of hope that he lands in bringing Lauren back, but where we end up is something we didn't consider.
Yeah.
Like maybe we did end up to where it is, yeah, we don't have her back, but we ended up in a place that we didn't expect, to where, yeah, we didn't get her back, but we're okay with it. We found a way to be okay with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was compelling about this story.
You watch the Black Mirror at all, dude?
Oh yeah.
That
in there.
You know that episode where the chick's boyfriend dies?
Yeah,
but she gets
she orders like
a copy of him because
I thought about that. I actually thought about that while reading this. Yeah,
it's a really funny episode because she's like basically the guy is a simulacrum of based off of all of his life experiences and like all the recorded data about this dude, but there's just something a little bit off about him.
Yep.
Like he pretty much like doesn't sleep, right? I think it's something like that. He's just like,
yeah, he doesn't need like actual human needs.
He's
like,
just hanging out with her,
yeah.
and she's just like, this is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about that. Like Feldon's going to end up with something pretty close, but then he's going to be weirded out by her, and he's going to break up with his copy of Lauren.
Yeah, he's like,
so
it turns out, wait, is that what your face looks like? Yeah.
It's not me, it's you.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wanted to, let me pull it up too, but I wanted to talk about the card a little bit now, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of, we kind of fleshed out the story a little bit, right? Who we're dealing with.
Yeah, so it's one thing to talk story, but how does this relate to Commander? Because
exactly,
this is a Commander podcast.
Yeah, we didn't come here for shits and giggles. So yeah, you mind reading them off?
Yeah, let me pull them up, dude. Okay, so Feldon of the Third Path. So his casting cost is 1 and 2 red. He is a human artificer. The body on this guy is a 2/3. He has an activated ability of he can pay 2 and a red, plus he has to be tapped to put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard. Sorry, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step.
Okay, man. Let's like break this down just A to Z on it, right?
All right.
So let's just start with the color identity, right? So what I think is really cool about Feldon is they kept the mono red.
Yeah, that is pretty, because that's kind of like his home base, right?
Yeah, it's his home base. He went through all of these things and he gained these new insights about the other schools of magic. But at the end of the day, yeah, he's from the mountains and he's kind of embraced that.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't really, although he has more perspective, he didn't adopt a lot of the other, color ideologies. And we talked what was cool is that maybe if we ever saw him again, we could easily see a splash of white. Kind of.
Yeah, it would be
maybe that
interesting to
journey.
see him splash some other colors with a future iteration of Feldon, like a Boros version of him.
Yeah, and I love that he at least for this card he stayed red. Maybe I don't know. It'd be super cool to see a Boros version of him. But what's so awesome is that not only do you feel, with the story that it's unique, but he has a unique activation, which is Reanimator in red. Like,
Yeah,
we
which is
don't
crazy.
We don't see that, right? And what's really cool about, if you want to even just break down the activation cost, if you think about, it's bringing back an artifact. So homage to the automaton version of Lauren. It's 2 colorless. So I'd imagine whatever material you get, like if you want to take it literally, it's whatever material you want to get. And then, a bit of him, a bit of passion from him, which is the red.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the physical energy output you do to create this thing is how I like to read some of these activation costs. So I kind of see that a bit with Feldon, right? Even being nitpicky is that it's just your graveyard, right? So it's just physically things like Feldon has seen or experienced enough to where he can make a likeness of them.
Oh,
right?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, if you're accessing other people's graveyards, like how can you do that without, if you're physically building it, how can you do that without prior knowledge of it?
Yeah.
Right. So even little stuff like that, I appreciate in, a card like this. And I don't know if R&D intended that at all. Maybe I'm just a fucking nutcase, right? But that's how I want to look at it, damn it, We're
going to break it down like the Bible, dude.
Yeah.
And read it this way and all
then it has
up and
haste,
down.
which I think is just kind of, for functionality and that it is in red and part of the archetype. But what's really important is the sacrifice at the beginning of your end step.
Yeah.
Right. So you feel a bit of that what he's bringing back, it is temporary, right? Is that he's only temporarily bringing back Lauren. Part of the struggle we were dealing with is bringing someone back permanently from the dead, undoing death. The activation here is saying that can't happen, right? It's doing what we're saying. We can create an exact copy of something, but it won't last.
Sure.
Right. And it probably won't perfectly be the thing that it was. So that's why it's sacrificed at the beginning of your end step, because it's just this temporary thing that happens and you can't permanently bring back Lauren. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think about the execution of the design of Feldon?
I think it's pretty gorgeous, like even if you didn't see any of, if you haven't read any of the story, you could probably see this card and get kind of an idea that like this kind of means something a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if that flavor text right there, she will come back to me.
Yeah. Like that's all he's looking for.
She will come back to me. And talking about the art, like he looks really haggard. He has this long beard. He's unkempt. Like something's been eating at him. You can kind of see it. Like the artist representation of him. Something's been eating at him. He's holding the head of an automaton and looking at it like pretty contently.
Yeah, and he's like looking into her eyes like, am I going to be, this is going to be the best fuck bot yet, dude?
Am I daddy again? Yeah, he just,
Andy was talking recently about how he like calls you daddy at work all the time.
We freak people out. We'll just call each other at our desk phones. Come on. They take themselves too seriously, damn it. But yeah, I think the card representation for the stories, it's kind of like the pinnacle of this, the flavor function for me at least.
I think the thing to me that's really cool is the card design of it. Like you illustrated it, it really does represent his story super well. In that, like you enumerated, like he's bringing them back, but they have this odd, like it's a creature in the graveyard, but they're coming back as an artifact creature. It's this automaton type thing, but it's sacrifice. It's this temporary thing. Like it's executed super well in terms of reflecting the story. But I also think and I think this is huge, is it's functional as a commander, right?
Yep. That's hard to pull off, right? Is that, not only did it represent the story, like you said, it's like this snapshot of the story, but it's functional. It works awesome in the game. Like Andy has a Feldon deck right now.
Yeah, he has one in our budget league, and it does
awesome.
Does pretty well.
And it's unique, and it's really cool to see this archetype outside of its normal color wheel.
Yeah.
Right? I think it pays homage a lot to every aspect of Magic, and that's what I love about the game, is that there's so many different aspects of it. And that's part of why I kind of feel for R&D a little bit. It's hard to capture, a good quality in every angle that they have to handle this game.
Yeah.
But when it works, it works. And I think right here it does.
Yeah, exactly. And what's another aspect I think that's really cool about the design with it is, like you say, it is unique. Like it's Reanimator in red. But but it has enough overlap with other things that you do see in red. Like it came in that Commander 2014 pre-con deck, right? That had Duretti in it and just that general artifacts theme. And it worked pretty well with that. Like Feldon got along well with that because he's dealing in artifacts and he himself is an artificer. And so he can kind of be a tool in other places as well. I think that's one thing I have a hard time with when I come across cards. Whenever Andy and I are doing like a set review, there's some cards where I'm like, this is a really cool card, but it is a build around.
Yep.
And sometimes that happens to be manifest on cards that aren't legendary creatures. So you can't use them as commanders. And so it's like, can you really build around something in the deck? But Feldon, I think he gets along well enough with an artifact theme that you can have him in like your mono red artifact deck, and he can probably help that out. And so I don't know, it's just a really cool design space, I guess is what I'm saying, because he's really cool as a commander himself.
Yep.
But gets along well with other archetypes that he can be present in other decks.
Yeah, I think what's cool about that from like a flavor perspective is I think another cool thing about cards like this is where they kind of break a little outside of the color pie in a way, right? So the color pie, they're just different temperaments that we see, right? So red to me is kind of like the color of, it's like the most human color, right? It's the color of emotion and the color of energy. And then maybe in kind of what you're saying of like Duretti and Feldon, maybe it's that human aspect of us that just has a hard time letting things go. So Duretti's constantly recycling these artifacts, and Feldon's always trying to bring back, something that he lost. Right. So, even from a flavor perspective, like, tapping into a different angle of that color, which is red, and seeing stuff like that is super cool. Right. And there's a lot of other cards inside of white or inside of black that you see stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And like even a twisted version, I think what's really cool about the Predators is that there's like these nightmare versions of their colors.
Oh my gosh.
Like Elish Norn, Brad jokes about it. It's
the blackest
color.
Card in Magic.
Yeah, blackest card in Magic. It's this nightmare twisted version of like the white zealousy of that it represents.
Yeah, it's true.
Like this fucking literal cult that she leads, And it's at the cost of everybody else. So she empowers everyone around her that's under her allegiance, and then just debilitates everybody else, right?
Yeah, it fucks with them hard.
Yeah, and that's what I love seeing in Magic. Just these new, fresh takes on this color philosophy. There's only 5 colors, but we've seen them represented thousands of different ways.
Oh yeah, and it's sort of the bend but don't break type philosophy, right?
Yep.
I think this is something that Mark Rosewater is always trying to make sure that their designers occupy the appropriate space, that like they bend things appropriately. I remember in one of his podcasts, he talked about, when he was talking about the color pie, he talked about the original Innistrad, how you had a lot of blue zombies in that.
Yeah.
So you kind of have, like you have, was it Geralf and
Glissa?
Glissa.
Is it Glissa or Gissa?
Oh, maybe it's
Whatever.
yeah, it's Gissa, because it's Glissa the traitor, right? So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're both these like stitchers, right? Like they put together these zombies, and like and one of them's clearly blue, and so for that set, for that like whole block, you see these blue zombies, but you don't typically see blue zombies. But it's something that like it's a friendly color with black, and so it can kind of like it's letting it kind of bleed a little bit, but not too far. And yeah, like you say with Feldon, it's something that kind of bends, but it doesn't break. Like there is stuff in red that does recursion, but it usually has to do with instants and sorceries or artifacts and creatures. It's kind of not really something that you see though in red, but he's bringing them back as artifacts, which is dope.
So when you see the card, you're like, yeah, I can see that. You know what I mean? Like it's believable enough.
Yeah.
Within that color philosophy.
Yeah, it's not
like,
fucking Chaos Warp where you're just like, what?
Yeah, you're like, fuck,
All right, dude. I don't know. Do you have more thoughts on this guy? And like,
no, that's kind of it, man. I think this is an awesome example of the potential of, what R&D can do. Like they can really flesh out a character, and there's room to do that, right? With War of the Spark, there's totally a timeline I see that they do one-offs of characters that maybe we didn't give a shit about and barely got to see, and maybe they make them into characters that we start to cherish.
Sure.
That could totally happen, right? But I think there's a lot that can happen when you do that, when you give a lot of care to just the one character or just the one world. And then when you think about the Brothers' War, yeah, you don't think that a lot. You don't think about the ramifications of what happened from Mishra and Urza like terrorizing Dominaria.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like this. It's little one-offs like this with Feldon to where it builds the world even more. To where like, wow, there's like living and breathing people experiencing loss from the story that I've been seeing this whole time.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it isn't just about dragon engines going through Dominaria. There's consequences to this, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I love. It's really diving into, yeah, this world is fleshed out. You know, I can see inside of the home of a Dominarian during the Brothers' War because of stuff like this, because of the one-off with Feldon.
And that's I like that point, because it's like we talked about when we were just kind of talking about the War of the Spark. Like Gideon is not, he's not like a relatable person in that he's kind of like, he's the 1% of the 1%, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. You're like that's who you wish you were, some Adonis or whatever.
He's fucking Michael Jordan of the multiverse, right?
Yeah.
Like that's who that is. But Feldon is just kind of like, he's just a dude.
Yeah, he's some guy. You know?
I don't know. My brain was just kind of thinking, like when you were saying when he was, you know, it kind of represents this human aspect. It's just like the graveyard for Feldon is kind of like him just putting stuff in a storage unit. You know,
yeah,
like,
he's a hoarder.
he's a hoarder. He's like, I might need it, you guys. Don't throw it away. I might need it.
Kind of looks like a dog I had. You know, I could turn it back. You know? Yeah, I don't know. I love that. Like I love seeing a card. I love seeing a character that you can relate to.
Yeah, and like so I've been kind of copy editing my girlfriend's grandparents. They're from Germany, and they both had journals from where they recount their experiences during World War II. And he got drafted by the German military, even though they already had like 3 kids.
Yeah,
but they were just desperate for bodies, and he got sent out to like the Russian front.
Oh shit.
And he got captured by the Russians like at the end of the war, and he like escaped from the Russians multiple times, and just like getting shot at, almost got executed multiple times. And this is just a guy that he was actually a machinist, interestingly enough.
Weird.
He's just a guy that
like
just
a movie,
like
man.
just wanted to work and support his family. And you know, here's this big war that's way bigger than him that negatively impacted his family like in a huge way. And that's kind of, I don't know, like you bring that up, it's kind of like I'm thinking of like I immediately can identify people in my orbit that can connect with the story of Feldon. Like it's a cool story.
Yeah. And then, you know, I hate to always bring it up, but yeah, if you think of Gideon or even Jace, maybe they're these things that we want to be and aspire to be.
Sure.
Right. But as they go through these things, maybe I don't feel that same kind of triumph I do with Feldon, because I feel like that's something I couldn't obtain.
Sure.
I'm like, I'm not just going to cast illusions and fucking get all my work done in a day. You know what I mean? But Feldon, it's like, okay, I see that. Like I can see myself on a similar kind of journey of acceptance.
Yeah.
With maybe, you know, even realistically losing a loved one like he did. You know, that's something that is very human, but it's kind of under this facade of, like this fantasy story that we follow and like this game that we play with magic. But when you can do that, take a little bit for yourself out of the story that you can see you know, going through the motions in real life, like you've transcended the game at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's true. Feldon, salt of the earth, dude. Hey, thanks for joining me and AP for the Legendary Creature Podcast this week. Man, it's good to be back. Thanks for being patient with us as we missed a few weeks of the podcast. Hopefully next week we will have Andy back, fingers crossed, assuming that he has survived the bears and such in Alaska. Music this episode by the artist Silver Richards. We'll post a link in the show notes where you can find his music as well as the beats of other musicians who let us use their tunes on the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at legend_creature. Also, join us on YouTube. You can join the conversation in the comments section on any of the podcasts there. And be sure to check out gameplay videos, including a new one that we should have coming out in the next day or two. It's been long awaited. But this one's very dragon-centric, so you won't want to miss it. Until next time, take it easy.